The chapter that I'm reading from is chapter 3 in the book Everything Changes. It's published by Bloomsbury. This is page 30. So when you all are reading it, you can have a connect. Bapi was a chronic heart patient. To make ends meet and manage the house and household expenses, along with the mounting cost of his medication, Ma ran a Montessori school on the ground floor of our house. That was in a sense her own entrepreneurial venture, and she had hired teachers and support staff. The school operated in the same hall where Kala Mandalam conducted their dance classes from the evening onwards. We also rented 2 rooms with attached bathrooms on the same floor for paying guests, a common practice back in those times. This is the early 90s. As you know, paying guests like a serial was very common. A separate serpentine entrance on the right hand side of our house connected these 2 rooms with the main building. When I was in class 6, one afternoon, the doorbell downstairs rang just as we were sitting down for our Sunday lunch. Bapi was unwell again that particular month, and he had requested Ma to show the vacant room to a lanky, wheatish, staggeringly tall South Indian man who had come by to check out the space on the same day in response to the ad. Mamma, my maternal grandmother, grumbled about it being or dupur bela, mid-afternoon. Ma did as she was told. When the gentleman followed her upstairs, I hovered around to see who our new paying guest was. How did he look like? Most of the PGs, as we call them, I really never had much occasion to interact with, since I'd mostly be studying on the mezzanine floor. I would catch a glimpse when they came up, either to discuss the delay in paying rent or problems with the water supply, for instance. They were usually senior men. Uncle wasn't. We became friends naturally. It was easy to. Almost every evening he would land up at our home upstairs, holding up something to eat or an English news magazine, chat with Bapi, watch the occasional cricket match or use the landline to receive a call. And we would end up playing Monopoly as a routine, which I would always win. Mama, who was usually very snobbish around new people, warmed up to him too, soon enough, asking him often, stay for dinner. I wasn't even sure Uncle really liked our food, as his parents were vegetarian. They were Andhra Brahmins residing in Bangalore. But over time, my grandmother insisted on him learning how to pick fish bones, recognize particular varieties of march, river fish, the rohu from the katla, relish the hilsa, a delicacy during the monsoons, and also accompany and eventually replace Bapi in purchasing fish and groceries from the famous Gariyahat market, and occasionally even in a Padar Bazaar or neighborhood market. Uncle's stories about his growing up years in a largely Christian neighborhood in balmy Bangalore, his 3 brothers christened the Rao brothers, playing gully cricket with the famous cricketer Roger Binney's siblings, the Binney brothers, his penchant for Hindi cinema music, especially Kishore Kumar, the Beatles, were endearing. He took us out for fancy dinners to 5-star hotels in hired ambassador cars, helped Mama with a cafe she had operated out of our garage that opened at sundown, and with her catering orders took over all her accounting work, bought his colleagues, sometimes old friends visiting from his hometown, and polished off all the leftover sweets. His birthday was on 2nd October, and consequently his pet name was Gandhi. He had lost his mother at birth, and thereafter his father married their younger sister, and they lived in a noisy, fastidious, large joint family. He took me to a standalone Archie's shop on Gariyahat Road, a busy thoroughfare once to buy birthday gifts for my friends at school, pampered me with clothes from Vardhan Market, which sold imported things, recorded music cassettes, and made intimate conversation, all of which initially had seemed scary, strange, and far, far too unfamiliar. Most people came and went from our lives, and the laughter reigned. I had not grown up around a man except Bapi and aging sire. Would uncle also leave once his professional stint in Calcutta wound up? I often wanted to ask, would he too never look back? He's kind, you know. I wrote in a letter to Baba informing him of my new acquaintance, the soon-to-be family friend. It was easy not to notice Ma needs all this. I never asked her what she thought of this man who had grown to become a constant in our monotonous lives. I gathered that uncle was also at least a decade younger than me, and because they hardly ever conversed one-on-one, I sensed absolutely no threat. In fact, uncle's calling bell made us all feel less isolated. His calm presence, his smiling face was brimming with youthfulness, happiness and aliveness. One Sunday afternoon, when I had to go to Dalia Mashi's home for my weekly singing lessons, the cab Ma and I took suddenly slowed down before the post office at the end of our lane. There, Uncle stood waiting, his hands stuffed inside his trouser pockets, and he wordlessly occupied the front seat. Him and Ma left together after they dropped me, and always returned at the exact stipulated time to pick me up over the next few months. Uncle always sat beside the cab driver and made it a point to carry back a shingara, a samosa, from a shop called Gupta Brothers that specialized in North Indian street food. I liked uncles, though I never said it out loud to anyone, even him. Everything was just going on seamlessly until one evening I saw him press his palms against Ma's, and she blushed, not removing her hand at once or asking him to back off. I had never seen my mother court or ever be remotely interested in male attention or dress up to lure men, let alone go out with anyone of the opposite sex. She had no male friends, except one friend of Baba's who was more like a brother. I too referred to him as J2, the respectful nomenclature usually reserved for one's father's older brother. While Ma or my grandparents had never fully opened up to me about what transpired between them in the telephone room all those years ago, the steely silence, Ma's tear-stained pillow, and the steady disappearance of our lives, of the only men I had seen socializing with her and us, had confirmed my suspicions. Ma would have been strictly warned or even reminded of her one error in judgment and the price she had paid for it. That the four of us would end up paying all our lives. Every Sunday, Uncle waited at the exact same spot. I surmised my grandparents also did more thing, as nothing was discussed when he came upstairs immediately after for dinner. Ma maintained her usual distance, going about her chores and not making deliberate eye contact with him. Uncle mainly kept Bapi and me company. I should have been unperturbed, but inwardly I found myself getting extremely anxious. He's like that stranger from the Mumbai airport. Baba, it's not safe. What if he takes Ma away? Do something so that he leaves, please. Each of my letters to Baba began to say, maybe we were the same, I think now. Mama, Baba, Dad. Holding my mother to a promise to only be a daughter, a single mother, and a dead man's wife. A fractured dream, a failed marriage, a fatal ending. In our lives, in the years spent in continuing after Baba, there was no space for a beginning, no windows or doors, or even tiny cracks, no light either. See, actually I am, that's why I'm doing this. Of retelling and oversharing the details of one love story, as you can see, it would have to be that of my parents. I can't be certain exactly when I changed my mind about Uncle either. But what was it that made me give in eventually to the idea of us? I wonder if it was because one fine day, this is the climax of the love story, he just disappeared, reaffirming my worst fears while answering my initial prayers. I didn't have the nerve to ask my mother if they had a lover's squabble, or if he had actually turned out like that married man at the Mumbai airport whom my mother had certified as unsafe and had betrayed her in some way. I wondered if she was frightened of her parents and society. I wondered if she was frightened of me as well, in some measure. Or was she daunted? Was she daunted by the shape of her own heart that was now marching to the beat of a different drum, desiring a man, desiring companionship, desiring physical intimacy, desiring a home of her own, all the other colors that had been erased from her life over time. It was painful to see my mother without uncle, and while we had no cell phones back then, I imagined uncle being equally bereft without her and us. School days dragged on in the same manner as endless summer evenings, stretching shapeless. There was no laughter, no banter, no monopoly, no board game wins, and secrets about crushes that never reciprocated my attentions. There was no one helping Mama with her accounts, no one bringing back fresh fish, no animated discussions about food, football or film. In a sense, we had returned to exactly where we were before Uncle had entered our lives. And while his absence resurrected a certain sense of normalcy, the shift his presence had ushered in seemed too daunting to put behind us. Ma, Uncle and I were a thing. And while Mama and Bapi were still my world and Ma's, inside their cocoon was now ensconced ours. Like a precious pearl encased tightly within an oyster at the bottom of a great teal ocean. I first approached my mother one night when I saw her sobbing alone in the bathroom. She looked up teary-eyed and confessed how she had lacked the nerve to say yes to Uncle and had been apprehensive about her parents' reaction. She worried about how Uncle and us may have to move out post my 10th boards if Mama and Babi could not come around, or asked her to leave their home. Both their approval and her alleged betrayal meant the world to my mother and was tearing her apart. Especially since the first time around, her mother had objected to Baba and their marriage. I guess a woman never forgets a parent not blessing her heart, especially if it is later ripped wide open by the love she is forbidden to pursue. I asked Ma, do you love Uncle? And if he were to return, would you change your mind? Would you overcome your fears? Would you accept his marriage proposal? Parents, I assumed, were supposed to love one another. Happy parents, that is. And I wanted us to be happy. I wanted my mother to be happy. Ma nodded silently and wiped her flushed cheeks. With another hand, she rose from the cot where she sat, staring at one of Uncle's last love letters to her. And they would send love letters to one another through me in India Today magazines. Something had to be done, and I had to be the one to do something. And so the next day, I encouraged my mother to call a friend of Uncle's who had spent some months in Kolkata and was very close to my mother, and to try and win him back, to convince him that she was ready, that we were ready. Ma listened as if I were a parent. I actually felt I was one, suddenly more grown up at 13, giving my mother away, approving of her choice like she possibly never had her own mother do for her once upon a time. Before we knew it, and without ever really asking my mother explicitly what transpired on that call and what she said to mend the cracks, Uncle made a comeback. Unlike Ma's wedding to Baba when she was 21, when she looked anxious and unsure and foreboding, my mother tied the knot for the second time in her 40s in a no-fuss registry after work on a weekday. Uncle's office colleagues bore witness and they signed on the wedding register, something I wish I could have done. Ma did not apply shigul or sport a Mangal Sutra or even don the customary red and white bangles, shakha pola, symbolic of marriage in our home state of West Bengal. Neither did she change her surname to Rao in her official documents. There were no elaborate wedding photos clicked for posterity, no feast either with friends and family. She couldn't do it. But I know this remains the bravest and toughest thing my mother ever did. Back then, at a time when a second marriage, akin to surviving as a single working mother, was considered sacrilege, especially if the woman had chosen the man, chosen